Hello, art friends. Today I'm going to show you two projects that use simple lacing. These projects are ideal for pre-K through first grade, and they're also great for any students who need some more work on basic motor skills. The first project is simple paper plate lacing, and the second uses plastic canvas. Why do a lacing project? Well, for me, it's the first step in learning how to sew. I teach stitching in elementary, kindergarten through fifth grade, and I also teach adults. For the littles, it's starting to use different tools. They can follow a pattern. It really helps them work on their concentration. Persistence is really important, especially if you are teaching for artistic behavior. Fixing mistakes, starting over, figuring out what the problem was, and figuring out how to fix it. You know, so many of our kids get so upset when something goes wrong with their artwork. Learning to stitch gives them a real sense of control and empowers them to undo mistakes and redo them. Now, the secret weapon for these two projects, tipped laces. You can buy yarn which has these aglets on the end, just like a shoelace. This makes all the difference in the world because you don't have to deal with needles and you don't have to tie knots. Now, my kids are going to get needles and knots when they're in second grade. The tipped laces really speed things up and make it so easy and really reduce any sort of frustration. I have many other videos on needlework on my YouTube channel. When your kids are ready to move on from lacing, you can check those out. Now, our first project, paper plate lacing, is a very common lesson, and you can find lots of ideas and examples online. The one I'm going to show you is very simple. But if you want to adapt it to a theme or a holiday, it's very easy to do. So my kindergarten lacing lesson starts with a colored paper plate. It's just one lesson long. And what I'm looking for is I want them to go in a straight line. I want them to get every hole. What people of all ages have a hard time with when they first learn to stitch is pulling each stitch all the way through. So many times they want to go in, out, in, out, in, out, and then pull the long string all the way through. And it's just too much friction, it gets caught. So I'm really working on getting the kids to understand each stitch has to go all the way through. For supplies, you're going to need paper plates. I like the smaller diameter, glossy colored ones, but you can use any paper plate. You'll need a hole punch. I go ahead and pre-punch around them. It doesn't take long. You'll need your tipped laces, scissors, paper if you're going to add other details or googly eyes or whatever you're going to need, coloring tools. And I'm also going to show you how I use lacing cards before we start the project. That's optional, but I recommend it. So the lacing cards are just for practice. And there is a great video that I have them watch. And what this woman does is just goes very slowly and laces up that entire card. And then she takes it all out. And then she laces it up again. And then she takes it all out. And so I have them watch it for, a few minutes, but then I just let it run while we're practicing. So what the kids have to do, and I explain, they don't get to keep these. This is just our practice. And after they do the practice one, then they're going to get the project. But not only do they have to lace it all in, but it's very important to have them take it out. This is a skill that is really important. Not only does it cement how the lacing actually works, but it gives them that ability to problem solve and understand how to undo stitches once they're in. I don't bother much about whether they are doing a running stitch, which is the in and out, or the whip stitch, which is around and around. The demo shows both ways. I'm concerned with in and out and pulling it all the way through with every stitch and pulling it all the way out. You can see I have a big variety of lacing cards, and I would call this spider lacing a success. Even though they didn't do a precise job, you can see that they fully engaged with it. And having them do it and take it out is going to be so much more useful than me standing over them saying, no, not there, put it there, do it this way. Letting them experiment on their own really builds those foundational skills. And sometimes I have kids that never want to move on to the other project. They just want to do one of these right after another, and that's fine with me. I'm not really interested in the final product here. What I'm interested in is skill building. So when we are ready to move on to our project, I have them pick a plate, which I've already punched the holes in. I also have a pile of small papers with basic shapes printed on them for them to color, cut, and glue in the middle when they're done. I don't have any particular theme. And you can see here what success looks like. Everybody's happy. The coloring and decorating the plate really buys time for the students that are slower. The ones that are really fast, first I have them cut and color something for the front, and then I'll have them just color on the back because the back's not shiny. Giving the slower ones time to really take their time to get it all laced up. And then next year, we move on to plastic canvas. Again, this is one lesson, and I'm really looking at the same target skills, going in and out, following a pattern. But here they have so many more design choices, and most of them, because they're moving more quickly, are able to use multiple colors. Again, I want them to be able to fix their knots, pull out their mistakes, and think about pulling each stitch all the way through. For supplies this time, you're going to need the plastic canvas, which you can buy most cheaply in these big sheets, but then you have to cut them. A little more expensive is these different shapes. One thing you do have to keep an eye out for is how big the holes are. This top one with the heart, the tipped laces go through that main grid very easily. Some of the ones on the edge are a little bit tighter, but they can all go through. This circle, you can see, has bigger holes on the perimeter and smaller ones inside. So far, it hasn't been much of a problem because they usually don't get that far, but it is something to watch out for. You're going to need your tipped laces again and some scissors. And you can buy packs of these shapes that have 6 or 8 different shapes in them. One brand that I like to buy has one particular shape in it, a butterfly, that has really big holes. So students that are having trouble with this, I make sure that they get the butterfly with the really big holes. Again, we do our lacing, and a lot of them say, oh yeah, we did this last year. But whether they did it last year, and of course we have plenty of new students, we're going to go through this exercise again of lacing it all the way in and pulling it all the way out. Then they get to pick their shape, and they get to pick their yarn, and they can stitch any way they want. Sometimes they need help getting started, but as you can see, this really grabs their concentration. I just laugh because it's so hard to get them to stop working on this project because there isn't really anything to clean up at cleanup time. They're walking out the door with the things in their hand. So even as they're lined up to leave, they will still be stitching. Another thing that I find fascinating, because I do teach needlework as part of my interest in folk art as a cultural tradition, I love to see how the students who normally sit 4 or 5 to a table and each work on their project right in front of them will naturally gravitate to tight little circles. Often they will work standing in a circle, or they'll go to the corner on the rug and work in a circle. And of course, a sewing circle or knitting or weaving is such an ancient practice around the world when people are working on small handwork, how they naturally gravitate together. And this is where many stories are told and songs are learned. It's such an ancient tradition that I love to see my modern kids just naturally gravitate into that position. So I'm going to show you these, and you can judge who did theirs correctly. If you're asking me, they all did. They didn't do it perfectly. Some would say they didn't even do it correctly. You can see a mix of running stitch and whip stitch, and some cases just yarn just getting wrapped around going everywhere. I don't care. Because I'm going to introduce them to needles and knots and fabrics and embroidery hoops, and we are going to be stitching for the next 4 years after this, I really want their first experience to be completely positive. I want them to have as little frustration or correction as possible because I want them to feel like this is something that they can do and that mistakes are no big deal. So they're not going into hand tailoring. They're going to be using these fiber arts in a very modern, expressive way. So there's just no need to enforce precision. Fiber arts can be seen as a very technical discipline, and it can be, but it can also be a very creative and expressive and free art form. And you can see my kids are very pleased with themselves. One thing that I never suggest, but they always figure out on their own, is that they can wear it as a necklace. So I always make sure that I have plenty of yarn so that everyone that wants a string just to hang it around their neck can have that. The plastic canvas and the tipped laces is a great thing just to keep on hand for early finishers or particularly fidgety students. I find that a lot of my bounciest and most challenging students really take to this kind of lacing and also to weaving. If you want to see where I go from here, I've got a video that shows my entire curriculum K through 5, and then goes on to show different ways you can incorporate needlework and fiber arts in middle school and high school, and also shows how I teach adults. I'm Heidi Howe. I'm putting my whole curriculum online on my YouTube channel. I hope you find something that's useful to you.